So, Sean, Nick, thanks for being here with us today. It's been great to kind of get a little bit of insight into your mind and what you're working on, the Vintage Archive. You've done that tour so much better than I could ever do it.
I do it often.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Know it well.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, what are you guys up to? Tell us a little bit about, what you're doing today.
Got a lot of mintage going on. Got a lot of, my life is pretty much like mintage, vintage, and sneakers, and then like my kids and family right now. So
that's awesome.
That's what I've got going down.
Yeah.
No, I mean, what's up?
Just psyched to connect with Sean on this project. We've been working on it for over a year now, almost 2 years, and seeing the vintage stuff come to life and be digitized and it's been amazing. So excited about it. Yeah,
no, absolutely. So back to vintage in your whole life, like how did you guys get here? Like what, Sean, we have a lot of people in our community specifically who followed you for many years, and all of them are wondering how a kid from Virginia ended up over here doing what you're doing.
I mean, the long story short of my journey the last I would say like 11 years or so would be, we opened our first round 2 store in Richmond, Virginia about 10 years ago. And at that point, we really didn't know what the future was going to hold. I didn't want to have to apply to another place and work there. So I was, we were kind of like, let's open our own spot. Let's see how it goes. Like, we'll offer people whatever we have in our closets and it'll be cool. We ended up opening our store. It kind of blew up. We did a YouTube show. We had friends of friends in California. I had never even been out here before, who were telling us that people out here were watching our show, and we were like, what? We're like, people in California like are watching our show from Richmond, Virginia, like this random ass store, like this is crazy. We're like, are you sure? And he was like, yeah. And so we came out to visit, and from that moment we realized, like, man, people in California are like hip to what we're doing out there. That's cool. They're following our story. We needed to expand our store, and we didn't want to grow in our area because a lot more sneaker stores after we opened, it was kind of like bamboo growing everywhere. They started opening all over Richmond, and we were like, man, let's do it on the other side of the country. So moved out to California about 7 years ago, opened our round 2 locations on Melrose, and that really blew us up. It put us on like a global stage. We started to get a lot of celebrities, athletes, just like influencer, the Hollywood crowd, and
right.
It put us on a whole different platform. Our show was really popping at that point because we had a lot of famous people coming in. I had just like through friends, actually Josh Madden, he invited me to like the first party I've ever been invited to, and it was like a Jordan brand party. I met some people there, kept contacts going. And just like how LA works, you do a favor for someone, they do a favor for you. You keep doing a favor for them. They keep doing favors for you. The favors get larger. Eventually, they hit me up. Nike did, and they were like, hey, we want you to design a shoe and be a part of this contest. My shoe won. That like sent me into this like overdrive of just like, again, on being on like a global stage and people being fans of my work. And then kind of like here we are now, in between that, I've done work with like ASICS. I continue to work with Adidas the last few years and will for the next few. Porsche, I've done like some Disney. There's been so much in between, and like it's all started with us opening round 2, 10 years ago. So
that's crazy. That's a lot of information, and
there's a lot to get into.
And a lot to get into too. And like, one of the things that I do want to get into though is like this whole YouTube show that you're doing.
Yeah.
And like what the timeline was of like when you were really like operating that. Before you moved to LA, and like what was the show all about?
Yeah, so the show was actually not even meant to be a show. We had just opened our store in Richmond, and less than a year into that, it was fun. Like we weren't like killing it, but it was really fun. Like we were going in every day and we were joking and we were like, fucking around with each other and like goofing off, and no rules, dude. Like we were in Richmond, Virginia, in the city.
Sure.
We were right in between like, VCU campus and crazy different neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? We were in this like mixing bowl, and so we got it all, dude. Like we were having a phenomenal time in there, and it just hit me one day. I was like, one of my best friends, I grew up with him, his name's Graham. He used to film us skating when we were growing up. He was like always the filmer dude, And I was like, man, like me and Graham have kind of stayed in contact. Above our store, our landlord had an apartment for rent, and it was $400 a month. and I was talking to Chris and Luke, my partners, and I was like, yo, we should see if Graham will move out here if we pay for the apartment every month, and let's just ask him to film us every day. I was like, think about it. I was like, in 20 years, we'll be able to look back at this footage and be like, what the fuck were we doing? And that was it. That was the only idea. We hit up Graham. We're like, yo, we'll pay for you to live, you know, in Richmond. He was living in like Northern Virginia at the time. Got him the apartment. He was a fly on the wall, just filming in there every day. But shit just was like popping off. One of my other best friends was working for us, Quincy, who was like my guy. I always said, I was like, I'll bring Quincy anywhere with me till the end of time, right? First day filming, first episode of our show, you know, like 8 years ago, Quincy comes into work drunk. You know what I'm saying? He like comes in, like smells like alcohol. He's like still like physically drunk. And I remember like having an altercation with him. Quincy's like, get the camera out of my face. And like hits the camera and like, I'm like, dude, you got to go home. Like you can come back later. He shows back up and it was just funny, right?
Yeah.
And we ended up like getting together and just like regrouping and watching the footage after that first day of filming, and we're like, this is hilarious. We're like, Graham, can you put it together in like some kind of form for us? And he ended up editing this like 20 or 25 minute episode, and from there we were like, okay, this is our thing. We just started filming. Graham would just film from 8 a.m. to when we got there to prep for opening at 11 till, I mean, if the day went till 4 a.m., that was when, you know what I mean? He would film everything and anything, the people coming in, what we were doing, you know, and it just turned into a show, and the episodes grew to like 1 hour episodes, 2 hour long episodes. We dropped a 4 hour episode one time.
Wow.
It took Graham 2 months to edit it. He was the sole editor.
Wow.
He
How many
filmed
views did you
and
get on the 4
edited.
hour?
Huh?
How many views did you get?
It's got like 5 million right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
what
Yeah.
years were this? Like when was
This
going on?
was we've done probably like, I think we've done like 8 seasons or something like that, and every year was a new season. And so we started it in 2013 or 14.
Oh, so you're pretty early on then with this whole YouTube.
Oh, we
thing.
were super early. We were actually on Vimeo first, because Graham was like, you know, all nerded out on the thing. He's like, no one's on YouTube anymore. You know, in like 2013, he's like, everyone's moving to other platforms. He's like, there's this one called Vimeo. He's like, it's gonna be where people watch shows.
Right.
And we were like, okay, since I guess this is like an episode, let's put it on Vimeo. So originally, Round 2 show was like Vimeo, and like our first trailer is like, my partner Chris was like, Vimeo, and like we were like, you know, really pushing the Vimeo thing, which is, are they irrelevant now? I don't know.
I don't even. I honestly don't think so.
Vimeo is like where you host really high end,
Like high end, like
Yeah.
quality and stuff.
quality
like that. Yeah.
short form.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, we started there. We moved it to YouTube because we're like, well, maybe we will get more views, although it's not as cool of a platform. You know what I'm saying? And we never monetized it. We always used music we never had the ownership for. We just want to have fun with it, dude. There was no point to make money, but to this day, we haven't done an episode in a handful of years. We have like 250,000 subscribers still. Our episodes are just continue to go up, millions and millions of views, because to this day, we are the only original sneaker show on YouTube. We were raw.
That's crazy.
Like uncut, just everyday operations, you know?
And that's about as candid as like footage as you're getting, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
scripted. It was just
No.
someone falling around and filming
Yeah.
everything.
Everything. And it was like customers coming in, selling to us, being disappointed with a deal, like whatever it is. And it was fun, dude. It was just such a great time for us. We filmed like trips to Tokyo, trips to Paris. Like we brought Graham with us anywhere we could. And so really from doing that like 8 years, people grew with us. Like I'll meet someone and they'll tell me that like, I watched your show in middle school. They're in college now.
How does that make you feel?
That shit's crazy as fuck, dude.
I bet.
It gives me goosebumps low key in a weird way, because I'm like, I didn't think I would be a part of people's lives like that ever. We never thought. And like outside of the store, I mean, these are people who've never been to the store. Like I'll meet someone in Round 2 store and they'll be like, yo, it's my first time here. I've always wanted to come. I watched your shows in middle school. I'm like a freshman in college now.
So they just know you like everything from videos and on YouTube.
Yeah. It's really crazy, dude. But anyways, that's the YouTube for us.
That's crazy. That's
yeah.
content is king, you know?
It
Like
really is.
that's a really like inspiring story
let's
to
pause
hear.
real quick. So,
They're being loud down there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's hard to.
Put passion first and hoping like money comes next.
Yeah.
And then like it was easy to do that myself and with my partners, and like us narrating our own story with Round 2. But then once like Nike kind of plucked me out and started putting me in like big meetings and you know, corporate settings and stuff like that, it started to get tough to, you know, like put passion first and try to convince someone that passion was going to turn into
Money.
monetary for them.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that became like such a tough hurdle where it's like I was then having to convince brands with absolutely no proof that what I was like being passionate about would eventually turn into money for them. And Nike was like the first place I learned how to do that in a corporate setting, and kind of like learn the little ins and outs of like, all right, I'm passionate about this. Here's how to put it in their language, you know? And that's, yeah.
When did you first realize you were into fashion, sneakers, and all that? Like, when was your aha moment, or was it like, did you just grow up loving it, or?
I mean, skateboarding. So skateboarding is my source of everything in life. It's how I know art. It's how I know music. It's how I know athletes. It's how I know anything. It's how I know different people, cultures, religions. Skateboarding taught me everything I know. It was more or less like the literal vehicle for me into everything. So it was also that vehicle for me into fashion. And I was just a skater at the time where like the words like sneaker collector wasn't a thing. Like sneakerhead didn't really exist for us. It was just like I liked having different shoes. I don't know how else to articulate that obsession, but like I loved the idea of like skating a pair of shoes and then going to like the Vans outlet and seeing another pair and being so curious how those skated, you know? And so that was my first obsession with like more or less collecting, was feeling the need to have multiple types of skate shoes because they all performed differently. And that's when the first time when I would look and be like, oh, I have 7 pairs of shoes. And my friends would be like, you're kind of weird. Like, I just skate one, you know? And I just like liked having multiple. And then, you know, different brands would delve into the skate world. Like to keep, you know, Nike got in and started doing skate shoes in like 2002, 2003. And I remember that was the first time when I felt like I was into fashion at all, was really like trying on some dunks that seemed too narrow to skate in, but looked cool. And I felt like I needed them outside of the utility of it being a skate shoe. And that's where I really felt like that I was starting to look into the fashion of things, like whether it was on purpose or not. It felt kind of whack at the time, to be honest with you. I was like, dude, you're whack. You know, like if you're not going to skate them, pass on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I did on that specific pair. But yeah, it quickly turned into something where I realized that I could express myself through fashion, you know what I mean? And I would start to see brands that spoke to me, whether it was LRG or like I saw True Religions early in the game, and I was like all hippied out. Like my dad got me into like Bob Marley and shit when I was mad young, so I had this whole like Rasta vibe growing up. And I saw True Religion jeans, and I loved the Buddha on the pocket. I thought it was like this cool. Their tagline was "Fashion for the Senses," and I was like, "This is so sick." And it was at like a Nordstrom rack or whatever. But I was at the skate park, like rocking skate shoes with like Billy Big Tees, you know what I'm saying? With like the huge thick stitching and stuff. And I was like arguing to my friends, I'm like, these are some of the best pants to skate in. Like, meanwhile, your crew Greco Slims are like ripped down the ass. I was like, my fucking True Religion Billy Big Tees are fucking holding strong over here, you know? But like,
photos of that?
I got many photos.
Shit.
My go-to outfit, Sean Wotherspoon in high school, was I had these Adidas end-to-end Stan Smiths that I almost wore every fucking day, or in a pair of Nike Dunks. I would wear True Religion pants or like Sevens or Monarchy or whatever. I schemed my way into a job at Saks Fifth Avenue. I put on my resume that I was a denim specialist with absolutely no fucking...
That's awesome.
And dude, it
I
became
love
my
it.
role. Then I got a job at Barney's because I was a denim specialist at Saks.
Oh,
you know what I'm
man.
saying?
I
And I
love
worked
it.
this whole thing as a young kid, like making...
And were you just making it up?
Yeah, dude, what? Like, and dude, they put me in the denim department at Saks, and I was like, they were like, all right, they would like send like women to me, and they'd be like, she's shopping for jeans for her husband. Can you put something together for her husband? And I'd be like, yeah, come on over, 7 jeans, you know, here's like the Adriana Goldschmieds or the AGs, you know what I'm saying? Shit like that. But yeah, I don't know. That was,
I love it.
Yeah, that
Love
was,
it.
you know, that
So
was,
you became a denim specialist.
I did, dude. It happened, you know. I love denim. I'll tell you all kinds of shit about denim
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
It really became me,
Yes.
you know.
Shout out to denim guys.
Yeah.
That's
But
crazy.
that was my outfit, was some kind of designer denim, a Ed Hardy t-shirt or a polo, and I would definitely do double polos and hit the collars for sure if there was colors represented on my shoe. And I would throw on the Ed Hardy hats too, some like rhinestoned out shit, dude. Like I was into it, but I skated in that. That was like my skate apparel. So.
I love it. I love it. I feel like we've all done some form of what you just did at some point in our lives. I know I've done it before too, where I said I was good at something that I had no idea how to do, just so I could get the opportunity.
Yeah, dude.
I think there's a quote. I don't know who said this, but like, if you get an opportunity, say yes, then figure out later, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're all solution-oriented individuals, right? Like that's what humanity is, right? So I feel like, you know, if you got something that you can go for, do it and then learn it and figure it out.
And let's be real, like in this space, I'm talking like the Web3 space, I feel like we're kind of like learning on the fly every day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
100%.
literally that.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So with that, Nick, thank you for being here.
Thanks
I feel
for having
like we got a lot of excitement when we told people that you were going to be on this show. So would love to learn a little bit more about you and how you got to this point and what you've done.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's funny when I hear Sean's story. It's like we all have the same thing. We start out doing one thing, and then, you know, life doesn't take you necessarily down that straight path. You end up taking a lot of turns along the way. But I grew up in Woodstock, New York. You know, peace, love, and everything. And at the time, it was kind of quiet little town post like the hippie thing because now it's become like a cool little getaway. But at the time, it was a quiet little town, and started a film festival there called the Woodstock Film Festival that's still happening. So it was kind of my first, like, my mom owned the little one-screen art theater in the town. So it was kind of my first.
That's dope.
Yeah, it was
That's
cool. It was
cool.
like I was cleaning the movie theater, and it was movies like Pulp Fiction and all that at the time. And so did that. That actually kind of took off a little bit. Then moved to New York, to New York City. Went to school there, bounced around for a while. Became a lawyer actually, and was really bad at it, but felt like that was the.
I heard about this Nick through another friend.
Oh yeah,
He was
yeah.
like, "Oh, you work with Nick Adler?" He was like, "Yo, he was a fucking lawyer in New York."
That's
I
why.
was
And
like,
that other friend, funny enough, is Matt Fontana,
Yeah.
who's like a legend in streetwear, original A-Life founder and all that. But I wasn't always about the culture. Like I was, you know, running around trying to be a lawyer, and it was just like suit was too big and it was hot and running around New York City.
They said
and-
Nick was showing up to the A-Life backyard barbecue parties like fully suited up lawyer, but like coming in buying like Jordan 1s and shit.
Right.
What
He was
the
like, I
whole-
knew there was something cool about this dude.
Was the lawyer thing something you wanted to pursue, or something like your parents kind of like
No,
guided
it was
you down?
so before that I moved out. I did move out to LA between college, after college, and I wanted to be in the film business. And I was like an assistant, and I remember being just like, this is not for me. Like LA's a tough town if you don't know anybody, right? When you're young. And I went back to the East Coast, and it wasn't my parents' wishes, but I did ask my dad. I'll never forget it. He was like, be a lawyer, and then you can do whatever you want to do. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, you know. And I did it, became a lawyer. And at first, I didn't, you know. Again, you're young, you don't know, and I'm running around trying to like hustle. What I did learn though, as a young lawyer at the time, was I learned how to settle a problem, as opposed to I wasn't a big arguer. I don't want to run in and, you know, battle people in court. I was like, I gotta get in and out of here fast, you know.
Right.
So I figured out the kind of nuances to negotiate. And at the time, you know, I'm kind of like I'm in that place where this is looking like it's gonna be the rest of my life. And I happened to be at my buddy's wedding, and he was getting into reality TV. And reality TV at this point is super young, like not like now where everything is
What year is this?
unscripted. This is 2000 and this is like 2000 and like I think like 3 or 4.
Okay, yeah, it would be very early.
Yeah, like super early, and maybe 5. And he's gets this job as a director on a new TV show, and the show is called Miami Ink, and the show hadn't started yet. And I was like, "Can I get a job?" At his wedding, I was like, "You think I could get a job?" And he's like, kind of surprised, like thinks I'm like making money as a lawyer, and meanwhile I'm not. And
Right.
and he's like, "But you got to move to Miami and take a pay cut." And I'm like, "Fuck it, let's go."
Right.
Move to Miami, end up on this show that ends up becoming kind of a phenomenon and sets
I
the
remember.
tone for for tattoo.
Miami Ink.
Miami Ink.
yeah,
And like
yeah.
crazy enough, all those guys too are like artisans like Chris Garver and people like that who become like legends in tattooing, but spent time there, and that was like the best. It was just work hard, play hard. Like you just like running around all day shooting this show, and then at night like just going crazy in Miami and South Beach, and do this season of the show, and then get a phone call. And by the way, we're such a ragtag group. We're so underqualified. And we get a call from somebody being like, "Hey, Snoop Dogg's got a TV show about his family on the E Network. You guys want to, talk about it?" We ended up getting the show. We should not have got it. It was like us versus Ryan Seacrest or whatever. We got the show.
Ryan Seacrest is popping.
Yeah,
right.
I go from being like, again, this is the whole thing. Like people are like, oh, can you be this job in the show? I'm like, sure. Meanwhile, I'm like an associate. I'm like a low level, getting people to sign releases. All of a sudden, I become like the supervising producer on the TV show with Snoop Dogg. First day at work, I show up in his trailer with a crew. We walk in, he screams at us, kicks us out of the trailer. And that began like a long career of getting to know Snoop. And after the show ended, I was going to pursue a career in reality TV and unscripted. And his manager at the time called me and said, why don't you come in here and focus on branding endorsement stuff? And that's what I did. And before I knew it, a decade went by, and Adidas deals and Pepsi deals and all these type of things. I learned everything I knew. And, that quickly got me to where we are, which is I realized that technology, and that was the key. And 2007, 2008 started to like call the social media companies, bring Snoop up there, get to know these people, realize that like they were making, I didn't realize you could invest, but that taught me you can invest.
Right.
And I realized at that moment, I look back on 2007, it's like if I'd have gone all in on tech at that time, it would have been game over. I'd be like, but instead we helped build everybody else's tech, Facebook, Twitter, and all that. We didn't know better. I mean, they were great tools, whatever. But now with Web3, I saw this moment happening. I was like, I'm going all in. I'm going all in. I'm putting everything down, going all in. And again, through my relationship with Snoop, started there. I was like, we're going to do a bunch of stuff, kind of really went wild, you know what I mean? And then got to know people in, the Jimmy.East, the G Moneys, whatever, the guys who were out here and girls who were out here just collecting, and was like, trying to learn. And now I feel like 2 years later, it's time to like launch our own projects and do things that I can represent. And I was really fortunate to meet Sean a few years ago during COVID, and he took me through his vintage story, and I was blown away. Yeah,
the black hole. Vintage in the world of vintage.
Yeah, and once I heard it, I was like, dude, NFTs, vintage, there's a marriage here. Yep. And that's where we started doing a new thing called mintage, MNTGE, and that's where we're off to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. So before we get into Web3, I do want to just hear how you guys met.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna cut off the live stream and talk about Web3, so we can do it at without everyone watching. I know we got a lot of alpha to talk about.
Cool.
Yeah. So how'd you guys meet?
So we walked into the store, and on the wall.
We were connected through a mutual friend.
Yeah, Brennan Russo.
Brennan Russo has been like this missing link lately in my life that's connected me with so many different moving parts, Nick being one of them.
Yeah. So Brennan was Adidas, longtime Adidas employee. I'd worked with Brennan, did a bunch of Snoop Cleat collabs and all that kind of stuff. And when Brennan left, he went to Beyond Meat.
Yep.
At Beyond Meat, he was, funny enough, super random Beyond Meat, cool company, but he connected with Sean. And Sean's,
What is this, like a parade down here?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Is it like a thing? Is it like Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade? Like, how many people are we?
Okay, so Brennan Russo, third partner in the company.
Yep.
Brennan was a longtime Adidas, and he had connected with Sean. He's the one that brought me to round two. Walked into round two, looked on the wall, saw a Snoop Dogg t-shirt on the wall. I've been thinking about these ideas around merchandising and music tees. And when I asked Sean about the tee, that was it. That was the moment. He pulls it down, gives me this narrative, the provenance. At that point,
I had to sell him on why it was $2,000.
Yeah, tell me on why is it 2,000? But everything he said made sense. At the time, ETH was also $4,000, so I was like 2,000.
You're like half an ETH, dude.
Run it up.
0.5, let's go.
Yeah.
And then
he
I think he had been thinking about NFTs at the time too. I kind of red pilled him. He red pilled me on vintage. I red pilled him on Web3.
Yep.
And then we left. We got in the lab. And we've been working ever since.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now Nick will travel and send me pictures of vintage that he's finding in vintage stores, so I know he's got the disease.
Yeah.
I mean, it's addicting. Like I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Like I started, so my collection with vintage started with actually wrestling tees.
Oh.
And those in the last 5 years have blown up. Like I'm talking shirts that 5 years ago would be $80, $100, or now $500-$700 for some of them.
I mean, you've probably done great margins on your collection value.
I really have.
I mean, it's such a great investment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I totally get it though. But that was just kind of the first foray into the whole vintage thing.
Yep.
But from there, it's you just start branching off into everything else.
And then speaking to so what excites you about the wrestling tees?
Well, because so my past, I actually was a professional wrestler at one point in my life.
Your past.
And it's just my past, right? I have that connection to it. So, and a lot of them though, like even prior to that, like being like a kid, I remember like clear as day, like having like that one shirt or seeing people in like the crowd with them when I go to events.
Right?
It's all of that, right? It's something that it gives you something to latch onto.
Yep. And I think that's like, I love asking that because it's like everyone's got that same connection to vintage. It's like very rarely is someone buying vintage and it's like surface level. There's always something deeper there. It's like why you saw that, why your eye went to that item, why you picked it out. And that's why also the relationship and the marriage of like vintage and Web3 is so exciting to me, because like that passion and that like nostalgia you have for those vintage wrestling tees, you need to have the opportunity to represent that in Web3. 100%. You know, like your avatar or whatever it is should represent that you, if that's what you want, you know?
Right.
And to have that opportunity, I think, is important. Again, like it's just back to the reason why mintage and this whole project's been exciting, and seeing, you know, where everyone else is taking it too. It just feels like we're really moving towards that, like personality, you know, we can
I love that, man.
Show our past. Yeah. You know? Still.
Yeah. Let's
in the future, wear the past.
Yeah.
That's our tagline.
Yo, so Nick, Nick that works for Mintage, he's like wrestling fanatic, like like historian.
Wow.
Yeah, like
yeah,
also
he might find Watts. His old wrestling.
I mean, we might have got connected somehow.
Dude, it's pretty tight. He's in here right now.
Yeah, we'll find him.
He's one of the biggest vintage wrestling tee collectors I know, and like he was always like our go-to guy at round 2. I'm sure you guys would hit it off.
That is crazy. Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah.
Let's pause. Let's end the Easy Live, and then so we'll get into Web3. You guys have been doing a lot of Twitter Spaces.
We do them weekly.
Yeah, a lot of cool guests too.
Yeah, man. Well, that's the thing. It's trying to build like a media brand. You know, not a media brand, but trying like what you guys are doing.
Yeah. We have
like a moment. You know?
Toon Talk every Tuesday. Toon Talk at 6:30 p.m. Pacific.
And then we follow you guys up on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Our fashion.
But that consistency is what's needed in order to create that brand presence, right? Like even for us, like back in the bull market, we were getting anywhere from like 600 to 1,000 people every Toon Talk.
Oh, I love that.
Now it's much lower, like 200-300 would be like tops.
Yeah.
But like for us, just about being there, right?
Yep.
Like being present, continue to show face, having good conversations. The markets will shift eventually. You just got to be there. You got to be present.
Yeah, no, present. You used a word that like it defines my life right now, and I want to like preach it more than ever. It's consistency. I've realized that consistency is like the stem and the key to literally anything. Whether you want to become someone or something on Instagram, be consistent about it.
Yep.
Whether you want someone to have a certain view of you in person, be consistent about how you interact with them. If you want to get an idea through, be consistent on how you push it. Like I just realized, I'm like, man, consistency is really kind of at the stem of everything. Like if you want to become a good football player, like how do you kick the best field goal? You're consistent about practice, right?
Yep.
Like just being consistent means so much, and you rarely see the results of consistency. But then when you look back in retrospect, you're like, oh shit, if I wasn't consistent about that, it would have never worked out. So
I feel like a lot of people, they miss attributing success to consistency. Like you said, like looking back is when you can identify it. But in that moment, you always credit some sort of outer catalyst, right? Like, oh, I did this right. But no, it's because you've been doing these other things every single day that you were able to do that one thing that brought you to that success, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we tell our community all the time. Like, you know, sometimes people ask, we're like, well, why do you guys have Toon Talk if you don't have any new updates to talk about? It's because we need to be consistent, right? One day we'll have that one thing that you're going to want to hear about. But the point is, you got to be present, especially as like operators, right? You'd always want people to know that you're there for them and that you're building and that you're accessible.
No, exactly. And I mean, for your all's crowd to know that you're there for them every Tuesday, whether there's an update or not. Like sometimes it's nice just to like know that there's something going on and you can rely on it. You're like, okay, I know every Tuesday they're doing this, you know? So it's just important, you know? And again, you never see those results immediately, but it always means so much to people down the road. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. We got to learn from you guys on, because every Wednesday we've been doing it. So we call it Fashion FUD in the future, right? And you know, we want to be able to give a little alpha and drop a little something, but also like we just want to kick back and have a really good conversation. And there's this balance of being like, oh, what do we have to mentally share? But I realized after the moment, people re-listen, like, oh, it was a great convo. It was just a good kind of chill vibe. So trying to learn that balance.
Yeah, it's tough. We've been doing it consistently for about 6 months now. Every Tuesday, we used to have twice a week, Tuesday and Friday.
Wow.
And now our Friday show moved to a Sunday, and it's hosted by 2 of our female leaders in our community. and it's like kind of a different vibe. So our
that's on Spaces.
Yeah, so our Sunday's called Happy Hour Toon Talk, and so that's more like just community vibes, you know, chill, listen to music, whatnot. And then our Tuesday one's a little more informative from like the team. But at the end of the day, I think have learned the hard way to understand like it's not always going to be as structured and as informative as you might want it to be. And then also educating the community on that's going to be the case, right? So not to expect always a new thing on a Tuesday, because it's unrealistic for a startup or any company for that matter to have a new, you know, impactful update on a weekly basis. Like it's just not realistic.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
Yeah,
right. You look at any like Web2 company, especially larger ones like Apple and stuff. That's why their keynotes are like once a year. Like they're not releasing like big news every single week. You just can't do that.
Yeah.
But it is a hard thing to do though. Like if you've gotten your community used to that at some point, it's hard to like scale that back.
Yeah. And again, to your point, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with that. And I love that you even mentioned that, because I love looking at sustainability in a holistic view, whereas a lot of people will think sustainability is directly related to like the food you're eating or if you're wearing a leather product or not, when in reality, it's so much more. It's mental sustainability, physical, financial. And so to that point, it is really like not sustainable to continue to have to push to feed updates. You might even start to like build a business in an unhealthy way just to provide some kind of like update for you know, the fans or whoever is consuming this information, you know. And so I feel like it's so important to have that kind of like pace, you know, push it out slowly. I know we kind of get mad at Apple sometimes, you know. We're like,
of course,
but
we're
now
like,
it's a whole
you're
new approach.
withholding so much from us.
I love that. I'm gonna say that from now on. Like people want the update. Like it's a sustainable approach, guys.
It
Just
is.
relax.
It is,
relax.
dude.
I like it.
You
But
know,
it
if we
is.
give
I
you
mean,
too much, your mental capacity will overtake.
I
You
know.
know?
the thing is, we've been like growing the project over the last 9 months now, and we know firsthand, and we experience, and what we see with other brands too is like, if you're just there just to, you know, throw updates out that really don't have value, in the end it's gonna just break down the brand brick by brick, rather than like laying the proper foundation and build something that's going to be meaningful. It's going to last for the next 2, 3, 4 decades, you know. And that's kind of our approach, right? Our focus is, we know we're working in the background, we're building these connections, we're kind of really taking this like concept of an NFT and building a lifestyle brand around it, building a culture from that. And that's not with like these temporary floor pump, you know, tactics that people use. And it works for some people, but for like the organic approach we're really trying to take, that's like something that we didn't really, you know, want to get into. I mean, we haven't spent any money really on marketing since we started. We didn't do any celebrity marketing. We didn't do any ad spend, none of that stuff since we started.
Word of mouth from users and the community is a great way to grow, right?
It's exactly how it was.
Super organic, to your point, and I think that's like, it's got longevity. You know, there's longevity there. When we opened round 2, we loved it. We never put a dollar into advertising, because we were always like, yo, we love people coming to our store, having a great experience, then telling 3 people about that, who tell 3 more people each, who tell 3 more people each. And that really does work if you do it the right way.
Yeah, it does, definitely. I remember January of this year, we had like maybe 500 people in the Discord.
Yep.
And then by the time we minted out in February, it was like 10,000, 12,000.
Speaks volumes,
you know, and it just like it skyrocketed. But again, back to consistency, right? We were doing it every single day. We were working on the project for over a year, you know, like
before you minted it.
Before we minted it, it was over a year between conceptualizing it and creating the art, learning how to do smart contracts, and launching the project. It was over a year that we were doing it. And we were sitting on Twitter Spaces for like 8-9 hours sometimes, like at the beginning.
Early on.
That's cool. That's crazy.
That's dope.
But now we don't have the time to do that. And you know, when we do get those like Twitter Spaces where like, damn, like this is a great conversation, we'll sit there for like 2-3 hours. But then it's like back to meetings, back to work, back to family. You know, you gotta kind of balance like all that.
Yeah, the balance is tough.
You've been seeing this guy on Twitter Spaces who's been going for like 6 days straight on FTX. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's kind of wild. I'm like, dude's got to sleep, man.
No, it's crazy.
I feel like the space has its pros and cons, and one of the cons is that, you know, there's this constant pressure to always be on, and, you know, back to sustainability and longevity, you know, humans can't work and operate at that same level consistently for a long period of time, right? You might be able to do it for a week, 2 weeks, right? But that's going to take a toll.
Yeah.
And
So you'll burn out.
100%.
Something that I've learned over time is that when I really care about the project, because sometimes you work, you don't have that much passion for it, and you find that you can balance your life really well. But when you really care about it, you get very consumed by it. And I felt like what we've been working on with the mintage stuff, again, I can feel the passion and love for it. And those spaces, like, they take a lot out of you. Like, you got to plan them, produce them. You do it, you go out, and afterwards, kind of the endorphins go away, and you realize you're pretty exhausted running through it. So it's an interesting life balance around sustainability. The more you kind of tend to really like and want to see the thing win, the more you can kind of take out of yourself. So you got to figure out that.
Yeah,
balance.
it's definitely a lot of social energy. I remember last week we filmed back to back 3 days.
3 of them, yeah.
By Friday, we were just like fried mentally, just gone, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like we're doing physical, we're here talking, but like it is mentally.
No, it's
a lot.
actually really socially draining. Web3 is actually, like, that's a cool point to touch on that I haven't really put into perspective till just now. Was that, like, before we could create in the background all day. Yeah. Like, when you're starting brands outside of Web3 and stuff like that, like, you can create in secret all day, and you can just come to market with a product, blow that shit out of the water, and be the next, household name. Impossible in Web3.
Yeah.
Transparency is number one. Community is number one. You know what I mean? Having people involved in your product, utility, roadmap. I mean, like, this is really socially draining for the people who are pushing these projects. It really is. I mean,
they don't tell you that when you start.
No, they don't. I mean, I don't think we realize it because we're so used to, again, being able to create in the background and not having to, like, tell everybody every foot of what we're doing, then having them question that, and then having to re-explain that, and then redoing that almost every day. It is actually socially taxing, but it is cool that it's forcing our hand on socializing, because now everyone's interacting. Even friends of mine who are, like, super, like, game nerded out, like, in the house all day on live playing Call of Duty or whatever it is, they're really involved in this Web3 world. And I feel like I'm even interacting more with friends who we definitely wouldn't have before. It's cool,
No, I mean, that's the whole community aspect of it, right?
Yep.
You don't really see it too often in other industries where you have this tight-knit group of people, whether it's like 1,000 holders or 100,000. Everybody knows everybody. People are always talking. They're always engaging with each other. And as, like, founders of a project, you're, like, in the middle of all of that, and you gotta make sure, obviously, how to balance it and be able to keep that sustainable, like, energy going within this concept of developing a community. But also at the same time, you got to be there. You have to be there with the people that are supporting the project, the people that believe in your vision. And I think that's a really, really big part of Web3 that, like I said, they don't teach you. When you want to get leader, into it.
You know, like a real leader.
You have to be an evangelist for your own brand. Because ultimately, as a founder and operator, you have a vision that you think is going to be best for what you're creating. And a lot of the times, there'll be people in your community who don't align with that vision. And on a daily basis, you have to kind of, I wouldn't say battle it out with them, but you have to try to, explain your vision in a way that they understand it better. And that can be very exhausting. You know,
it's like creating a sense of, like, being vulnerable as well, and, like, letting people into your world so then you can explain something with, like, the greatest, detail, or, like, just letting them in. It means the most sometimes on how you get that point across. So
how have you guys been kind of talking about your project? How have you been explaining it to the communities?
I mean, we've just started. I think we were in the trenches, like you guys said you were. You were, like, we met almost 2 years ago. We had to conceptualize an idea. We had to think about this amazing world of vintage and how can we apply it to the world of Web3. We had to figure out how to digitize, animate, hire developers, build a team. And what we're sharing now is, we're starting to really share the roadmap. We've been doing our weekly spaces, and our weekly spaces has been less of a traditional, hey, let's get more collectors and let's get real heavy on the DGen side, has been a little bit more about culture. So, you know, whether it's been John Wexler from Adidas or Sophia Amorosa, who founded Nasty Gal and has a company called Business Class, or Larry June, who is a beast rapper, like just a good person and understands like cars and fashion. We chopped it up about that. Last night we teamed Goda.
Last night was crazy.
Yeah, like, you know, Goda's Nina Chanel, amazing contemporary artist, and Easy Autobar from the you know, the sneaker game. So people are listening to Sean and Easy tell stories about coming up together. You know, so that's the moment. The way we're approaching Mintages as a brand. I want people to be like, damn, like I love the culture, I love the lifestyle, I love the look and the feel and the logo, and damn, like wow, Sean does this, and Sean was part of that Nike, and he's doing that Adidas collection, and you know, Nick came from Snoop Dogg and Adidas. I mean, and you
trying
know,
to
Web3
transcend
side.
the worlds for everyone, really.
Exactly.
You know, and just show them like, hey, like you can be into this and also into this, and we're going to show you that because here's a common thread.
Yeah, how you tie it all together. And then as we get into the core of it, like we're announcing like our, you know, December 14th, and if we drop after December 14th, but our Mint Pass is dropping that, you know, that then, and that Mint Pass, you can see a little bit of hits of it online now, and you know, we want that to give you access to some really incredible vintage opportunities, whether it's being able to get some of these things at the real price as opposed to the super bloated price, or you know, whether it's an experience that some of our designers, whether it's Sean or somebody else we're working with, curating it, and then actually being access to those digital collections. And what we've created with those collections, what Sean's led the charge on, is taking, I think, digital wearables and clothing and detailing them and giving them real essence, real, like you can almost touch and feel them. You almost feel like it's real, but when you get into them, they come to life in ways that I think, you know, Artifact has done a good job and Adidas has done a good job, but I'm going to say like we're elevating it and we're showing
you guys that
something next
picture
level.
earlier.
Yeah.
Kind of how we're bringing real life to it. So.
Yeah, but you should
that
talk
was
about the
really
collection
cool.
a little bit. You should talk about, because I think you should talk about what is in it and why you chose those pieces.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the collection's cool. Like, Mintage has been we've created as like this vehicle now to bring something to the masses that we couldn't before, based on it being, you know, handmade or crafted or this like work of art, or again, just not being able to sustainably recreate it. You know, a lot of times is an issue. I've been collecting vintage for maybe like 15 years or so, and I've always had different partnerships or like these different avenues to kind of use the vintage I'm picking, whether it's for our round 2 stores or for a project with Disney, or I'm curating stuff for Adidas, whatever it is. I always have like this utilization for it, but then I've always had this like private archive of stuff that it's always like caught my eye, but there hasn't been an immediate use for it, and I've always saved it to be like kind of just like subconsciously, like I know one day I'll talk to Levi's and they're going to want this for a museum, for example, or whatever it is. It's always that dream you kind of think. Right. I had a whole little section of stuff for like when I met Kanye for the first time, and I was like, you know, like I always saved them like thinking I would meet this dude, and then finally met and I was like, I've got these pieces I've been dying to give you for years, and it's that kind of thing, you know. And I would start to see these moments come to life, but then there's been these pieces that like there has been no moment that I felt like was going to serve them justice for what they do for me when I like hold them, and I'm using all my senses and like touch, feel, smell, and really less like understanding these. I'm like, nothing has quite come across yet where I'm like, this is going to be how I share these. And that's, again, like Mintage has filled that hole for me. And so for my collection, it's going to be a lot of items that like I've never put on Instagram before. I mean, no one knows I have like kind of like museum quality stuff that I've been curating and just waiting for this like special moment to kind of unlock them. But yeah, that's going to be my collection, you know, some turn of the century items, some 1950s, 1960s. You'll notice when you see my things, it's like there's layers to it. You know, you'll look at these items and it's so much further than being a garment at this point. I look at them and I'm like, this is a statue. You know, this could be filled out in a form behind glass in a museum with a whole write-up of the provenance, and it would look just as good as if you were wearing them out. And so I'm kind of looking at this stuff even beyond it being a garment. So yeah, I mean, the collection is going to be really cool. Just like some unique vintage pieces with layers and layers of character and personality and stories for us to bring to life through this like Web3 endless possibility fantasy world. Yeah, you know, we were talking about like the Unreal Engine shit, and just like how this is so real life, and you know, just kind of like the marriage of those things.
Yeah. How can you bring your digital representation to life, whether it's on your PFP or even on that fully rigged digitized version of yourself, right? Or the yourself that you want to represent in the metaverse, right? So we're digging into a lot of that.
Just trying to offer as many levels of personality as possible.
And I'll add one more thing, is like the way we want to drop these collections. There's element, everything is really, really done through designers and through the software. So, but there's elements to them, whether it's patchwork or characters around them, that there'll be kind of additions of and generative versions of. So we want this thing to be immersive. There's clothing collections, but there's also an experience beyond it.
How many pieces are the first collection?
Well, we're playing with those numbers as of right now, but it's limited in quantity. It's not 10,000 pieces.
Got it.
They're
super quality over quantity with this. Like Nick was saying, these are like handmade pieces of art. It's not generative like artwork, and it's hand done. And so these are like super special. We wanted the digital version to meet the same standard that the physical does. Like I was saying, like I'll hold these pieces and I'll be like, nothing's worthy essentially, and I wanted the 3D to feel that same way.
So the Mint Pass, does that grant you access to then purchase or this collections, or what's the mechanics?
So the mechanics of the Mint Pass is it'll give you access to the experiences. There's some airdrops, and then there's a number of collections that you get access to mint. Some are paid mints, and some are going to be free mints. But cool. It's numbered order to get in.
Got it. How many Mint Passes are you guys thinking?
So we are in the 1,000 to 1,500 range of Mint Passes.
Ooh, limited.
Yeah.
Probably closer to the 1,000.
Yeah, everything is super limited.
I know Nick wants closer to 15.
No, but we're super. Everything is really at this point is starting limited as we grow and we scale. And I think that there'll be a play with some music artists that we can create some stuff with that'll be larger in scale. But I think when you see a Sean or some of the other designers who you might collect, you're going to be limited because we want it to feel like that you really are connected to that piece.
Got it. I love it.
Yeah,
we'll have to get some for DGen Tunes community.
Well, I think because what I will say about DGen Tunes, what I noticed when I first got in, it was like they were fly. Like they got like the North Face jackets on and the Supreme box logo stuff, and I'm like, man, they look sharp, and like that hasn't. I think it was one of the first collections I saw that really kind of nailed it. So I do see some synergy here. I want that kind of consumer to go like, or the collector to go, oh, I got my DGen Tune, I got my mintage, piece.
Our demographic, our community, our collector is very much into fashion. They're very everything we've done around this brand has been cultural driven, very much what you guys are doing, right? So, and that's why I think when you came on Twitter, they jumped at welcoming you. It's because they already know who you are because they followed you in some way, shape, or form. And so our community is very much into everything you guys are talking about. So I feel like there's a very natural fit there for sure.
Dope.
How do you guys feel about the moment in like the markets? How are you feeling about like how your collector base is approaching the markets right now?
Yeah. Market sentiment is down overall, obviously for many reasons. I think personally the biggest problem that I see with it, there's two. One is that NFTs are being viewed by many as an asset class, as an investment versus a token that can grant you access, community, excitement, and experience. That's what an NFT is. And right now, for whatever reason, that's not how it's being positioned. And I think a lot of us got into NFTs because the money, right? Like I jumped in maybe a year ago because I thought, okay, I could flip these to make money. As I started to learn about NFTs, I realized that was the short-sighted vision of me, right? Now, when I started to look at the bigger picture, I understood. So that's the first problem.
I
is
that same
I think we all have,
right?
Of
course,
yeah. Market matured. We matured as consumers. Now we understand there's a bigger play. So I feel like that's because how small the market is. We still have a lot of that. And the second thing is just the financial side, and then the separation between Web3 is an ecosystem, has multiple products. Ethereum is the currency, just like many other cryptocurrencies, but NFTs are not a product of that currency. They're what you use to trade, but that can change, right? There's other currencies that can be accepted, other cryptocurrencies that can be accepted. And right now they're very closely tied together. If Ethereum goes up or down, it immediately impacts the value of your NFT.
Of course.
Whereas I think the NFT should be valued based on what it provides, based on the access and experience, not so much on how the crypto market is behaving. Because most of us are not traders. Like most of my friends aren't, they're not buying stocks, they're not flipping penny stocks, none of that, right? No. So like, why would they be incentivized and why would they be excited about an opportunity if it's not something they're not currently doing? And so I think breaking that mold is what is required.
And I think it's funny because it's showing that patience will pay off here, because it's hard to be patient when you got a community that's being like, we need to make sure the floor stays here or we're dumping. Whereas, I have to say, I really love this space. Like, and I think that shows in stuff I'm doing, but like, I love it from the high end art blocks, the autoglyphs, like one-on-one stuff. Like, I nerd out. The Goda thing gets me geeked out. Like, I bought a Hilma piece today, right? And again, those markets are all coming down, but I love to know that there's this like real high end art piece of it. Yep. And then as we go onto these other like places where it's community driven, it's utility driven, and like you said, you guys are investing in a podcast, and like these are the projects that patiently will win. And then, as we all know, there's a million other financial models that came and went, and this market's washing them out. And some trade, and look, I do like trading too. There's fun to it. You know what I mean? Yeah, but you can't have a supply of 200 million pieces. It just doesn't work that way.
Yep. No, we definitely need the traders and the degens, right? Like, that's part of our culture too.
Yeah.
But I think finding a better balance is what I think we need, right? Where it's like, for us, we're building a brand that's going to be here, 2-3 decades from now.
Yeah.
We can't build that brand if we're every day trying to find a way to pump the floor price.
No, of course.
It's just not, those two goals don't align. They're very opposite of one another.
No, it's smart to create the separation too, because like what you explained with how like the price of an NFT can be correlated to the value of like Ethereum or whatever our currency is at the time is too traditional. This is like traditional like physical currency model, where like when the dollar's down, US goods are down. When the yen's down, Japanese goods are down. And like, this is why we're decentralizing. This is why we're going to Web3. This is why we're working on the chain and stuff, is because we need to get away from that. We have to get away from it, and it's so important to note on that. Like, that separation is going to mean everything for the future of the projects, artists, creators, the art of it, everything. Like, it can't be reflected by what the currency's value is.
Yep. I agree, but that's a tough thing, right? Like, how do you shift the mindset of the current market, and educate people on this new concept, but then also understanding like the current market is very, very small. There's maybe 1 million active traders. The population of the world is over 4 billion. Like,
it's 8
billion.
No, we just hit 8 billion.
We just hit 8
billion. Literally, we just rolled into 8 billion like 48 hours ago.
I remember seeing it. Okay, 4 billion. I was off. But point being, like, that's the larger addressable market, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, how do you create a product that entices that market?
That's happening naturally too, with us being in this bear market where literally, like, I mean, dude, it's enterable right now. Like, you can enter, you can get those mutants for cheap right now. You can get projects for an affordable amount right now. So it's like, this is the time. This is when we're going to go from like 1 million active users in the next like year, 2 years, to like 10 million active users. Because first off, Instagram rolling out their NFT play, and now it's really like, the Starbucks of the worlds are rolling out their rewards
software
programs and shit.
The
hitting
capabilities is blending in, as opposed to us having to define it as get your MetaMask and log in, and the scary part, it's starting it is starting to blend in.
It's loosening up a little bit.
But to the point of what we're building, like, I think you and I had the same epiphany at the same time, is we can go and just try to build our own collections right now, or let's think about how what we do can be used in Web3 and blend into everything else. So that's why I'm so just so pumped on it. Now, is it as easy to explain it on the in the Discord? No, because we're like, hey, we're experimenting right now. We want you to wear ours. We want you to flex us like you flex Kith, right? But like Web3 style, and you know, and that's a little different. And we have to kind of break some shit to get there, but we're making it happen.
And I think a lot of it is because of time. It just takes time for like the whole like industry to kind of mature, and for other brands to actually utilize it in the right way. Because I think that we are kind of in that shift right now. And what I mean by that is that now you are seeing, like you'd said, Sean, like with Starbucks coming in, but like now just like Adidas is getting into it. PlayStation just filed for a trademark. Like we're starting to see like these actual huge,
a lot of trademark
IPs,
filings coming in like crazy.
And
Rolex.
I think that's going to be like kind of like the turning point, which we're kind of like living in from our end. But I think that we're finally getting past like just that profile picture project that offers nothing else outside of a floor price.
Right.
And once we start seeing like actual real life utility kind of tied in with these things in the instance of like memberships and experiences, that's when like the masses I think finally latch onto this.
No, I agree. And for us, that's something that we're using is like our leverage too, is like, okay, how can we incentivize people in our physical side of the community as well? And so since we're like a vintage based, you know, product, essentially something big for us, speaking to financial sustainability, speaking to just where the world's headed, you know, our whole point for our members is to also offer, you know, the ability to buy vintage at a real cost, you know, and not like, again, like it killed me to tell Nick $2,000 for that Snoop shirt. Like every second of it felt not right, especially to someone essentially from like the Snoop fam.
But
you know, like that.
But at the
was,
same
like,
time,
weird,
what it gave me though, what I will say is, once I knew it was, and then I realized how limited quantity it was, it became like an if you know you know kind of moment. Like, oh, that's the Chanel bag.
Like you needed it at that point. You know what I'm saying? I get it.
I mean, we were talking to Don C one day, and I was showing him, and he's like, I own that tee. Yeah. That was crazy. I was like, that's like, you know, that's like the
awesome.
But so it's cool, like being able to now start with our small community of holders, min pass, you know, holders, whatever it is, and then use that as our tester and say, all right, cool, we're going to give you guys access to vintage at like cost. Yeah. And that's a reward to you all for being part of it. You know what I mean?
On that, like, right? Like just think about that. Like Sean's got the access and the know-how to be like, he sourced this tea at this price, cover some costs, get it to you at this price. They go, they can flex it in knowing it's $200, $500, $1,000. They could resell it.
It's
make
up
money.
to you though. It's empowering you. It's putting that in your hands. But our
Yeah.
business is not going to be centered around making like a monetary profit off of a physical vintage good. Yeah. We're putting away actually with that whole way of thinking. Like I own a vintage store, so like that's how you know it's real. Like it's going to directly affect my personal business, and I see that it's only going to bring us to like a positive future of, you know, kind of saying like, hey, like this all, you know, we can make this accessible. Everyone can be a part of it, which is essentially what we want to happen with the NFTs and Web3 as well. Is like we want it to be accessible. We want people to have, you know, the gateway into it. We want you to be able to either find something expensive to attach to or something cheap to attach to, but the levels need to be there.
It'd be like amazing to have a vintage market at New York Fashion Week or NFT New York, where, you know, you token gated, you come in, you can pick all day long, like, you know, really have that experience.
You guys are doing something different. That's the thing. Like when you look at like what we expect when we see an NFT, it's not what you guys are doing. You know, the meta of what like is in the market, what people expect, what they want to see, you know, it changes from time to time. Sometimes it's like, you know, anime style NFTs. Sometimes it's like 3D NFTs.
A doodle.
You know, like
pixelated.
Exactly. And you guys are doing something completely different. You know, something that's not a traditionally seen NFT. And I think that's going to shift the way people look at the market and what can really be a deliverable in this space. And it doesn't have to be a profile picture. It doesn't have to be a piece of land or whatever it is. It can be something a lot more meaningful than that. And that's the same thing, you know, when we launched our project, people thought, you know, we're going to just go straight to zero because nobody wanted cat NFTs. Yeah. You know, nobody wanted like what we were putting out there, and then they didn't realize they wanted it till we put it out there. You know what I mean? And, you know, we wanted to make something that's relatable to the culture, relatable to us, nostalgic. When you look at it, you see yourself. And I think the next step is with what you guys are doing, you know, like people love clothes. whether you love it because, you know, vintage clothing because you were a wrestler back in the day and you remember those days, or like,
Or Travis
you know,
Scott's wearing Carhartt, so you're like, I need it.
yeah, like me,
know?
like looking and being like, damn, like I'm looking back at these like photo albums from whenever I was a kid. I see these denim jackets my parents are wearing.
Boom,
I'm like,
love that.
You know, so like it's that kind of connection that you make that drives it.
I got a good point to that. So Brennan Russo, who's the third partner here, one day went with Sean to pick, and he like came back like so geeked out. He's like, "Oh man, I saw this and I saw that," and I was like, "Slow down, okay, cool, fill me in." And he pulls out a little kid's Yankees jacket that he gives to my 7-year-old, and my 7-year-old puts it on, and I like went through a time machine to see what I wore. It was like what I would have worn in like 1980, whatever.
Yeah,
and I could just see my parents standing next to me. But when I looked at this jacket, and he rocks it hard, he always gets compliments on it now. When I look at this jacket, like the seams and like just the collar and like the texture, this thing is like what you would. It's like workwear now. It's durable.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's got it, that jacket's probably got to be from like 1980, maybe in the 70s. It is as fresh and clean and new today. And I looked at it and I'm like, wow, like this isn't what kids wear these days. I buy my 7 and 9-year-old like shit that lasts like 3 wears.
Yeah.
And then it's shrunk and too short and whatever. And you realize like all this like fast fashion, it's so wasteful.
It is.
And when you look back on these pieces, like I don't know, is the kids vintage business a big business? Because once I was like caught on that, I was like,
no, it's growing.
Yeah.
Like kid stuff is selling for a ton of money right now. It's really weird. Like you'll go to the flea market and these dudes selling true vintage will have like a 1950s like kids Boston College sweatshirt for like $100.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Like kids vintage is blowing up.
You know, the other day, my daughter has like a class once a week down in like San Clemente area.
Dope.
And there's this like antique barn kind of place that's out there, massive place.
Love it.
And I go there every week, right, just to walk around, see what they have, and just walking in there and seeing like the vintage clothes, the vintage. You know, I saw the other day they have a basket of like just vintage McDonald's Happy Meal toys, like sealed and like, and I'm like, damn, I remember like getting this toy like 98, 99, like, you know, just driving through the drive-through when they still, you know, it's a crazy experience seeing that because it connects so much to your childhood, your experiences, the way that you really process this kind of information and the memories that it will bring back just by seeing something that at the time you wouldn't think it's gonna, you know, connect with you like that, you know?
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Yeah, it really is.
It's cool to like feel that and be able to articulate it. You know what I'm saying?
I'm sure people are gonna feel that when they see your project, right? Like
I mean,
when you drop and people see what it is, people are gonna be like, damn, like I remember something like that.
Hopefully it pulls on some strings.
It will. You know, and like even talking about it, you know, like now imagine when they see it.
You
know. Do you think that Nike, the Air Max that you did, that people I always reference, do you think that did that? Like did that that like just pulled on some strings? Like was it?
Yeah, I mean like I think like the inspiration for that shoe like pulled on strings. That's where I learned that like a story was important. Like Nike would always tell me, like I would go into it and they'd be like, how do you want to design this product? And I would give them my design. They'd be like, well, what's the story behind why you designed it like this? I'd be like, no story, I just like know it looks cool. And they would always pressure like there has to be a story. Like, we can't bring any product to market without a story, so if you don't have a story we can't make the product essentially. And so it's when I learned, like I was always like, I don't have a story though, like my eyes see something and it looks good, and I would really pressure it. And I took time and I was like, wait, there is a story. I was like, I used that gray line because that represents the road and there's a blue line next to it. And then that's the beach. And this is like when I arrived to California and I'm driving on the road and this is the beach. And on the back of the tab, I did VA to LA. That was the journey I made to come out here. Like the different colors, I would start to break it down and I'm just like, this does make sense. You know, like the velour that I used on the sock liner was like a material that I would always find, you know, on pants or jackets thrifting that always, it just stayed in my memory bank, you know? But I thought once I started telling the story about why I designed these things, people could start to grasp it. Way easier to grasp a memory than to grasp, like, I'm telling you this is cool, and I know that this looks cool. You have to love it. You know, it's like way easier for someone to grab onto a story, and so that became like a huge thing. But it's again, like I was so happy to hear you talking about just like how it will set that next standard, because I do want people to like find those common threads in those stories, because even for myself, like I find a few of them in NFTs and like in Web3, but it still is like missing that one pivotal piece to make it feel like a full memory, you know? And that's why I've always been, I'm not fully like neck deep in Web3. I'm like still very like surface level, because I still am not comfortable with what's being offered. Yeah. Like it's not meeting my personal standard yet, you know? Like I have some mutants and random shit like that, and none of them actually represent me. Like my one mutant I think is very close. He's got like heart glasses on with bloodshot eyes, and he's got mushrooms all over him. I'm like, that's really close. Super fucking close. Yeah.
Do we have a tune like that for Sean?
But we can make one. But that's what's cool, is that it's like, you know, the closer and closer that Web3 can get to helping me represent myself, I'm gonna keep getting deeper in it. And I like to believe that there's other people that feel that same way. And so if we can provide something for them that they're like, okay, this is my vehicle and I feel connected to this, you know?
I think that's probably the biggest thing that makes like our project stand out, right? Like there's like people say time and time again, like there's like personality.
Like Nick said with the North Face jacket. It's like, that's a serious like personality trait. Like that North Face defines somebody right now in New York City.
Right. Yeah. I can look at those and I know that kid. Yep. I know that a couple of those tunes. And I know that kid.
And it's wild, right? Like, but you know, we hear it all the time from our community, and for new people that are coming in, they're like, I bought this because it just spoke to me. Like it wasn't because
I love that.
It wasn't because of anything else.
I love that reasoning to buy something.
Right.
It spoke to you.
Yeah.
You considered nothing else. Feelings.
You know, the craziest thing is whenever we actually minted out the project and we revealed the artwork, the amount of people that are like, holy shit, like this is me. You know, and they don't know what they're gonna get, right? You have the whole reveal process, but when you see people that get the one that they feel like resonates with them, like first go around, that's like a crazy thing. And like to like crazy life situations that people have gone through that are matching with the traits that the tunes are wearing, like that's a big part of it.
And it's also, you know, and this isn't something that I'm sure any of us are thinking about, but it also comes with it, as it should, is that those ones that really spoke to people that they bought because they're like, this is me, like the eye patch or whatever the fuck it is, like this is who I am, they're not selling that.
Yeah.
No, there's that emotional attachment to it.
That's value.
Yes.
That's how you grow a business. Yeah. You know what I mean? Imagine if you did your drop and everybody held. Yeah. And then everybody's putting in fat offers to try to buy this shit. You're just seeing like people offering stupid money and no one's selling. Yeah. It's building value, which is going back into, you know, creators' pockets and things like that, which is again what we need to keep going forward. Yeah. But that's the huge hit, is that it's like the more strings that you can pull on that people can connect to, it's like that hold and that value and that like, I would never, why would I sell you me? Yeah. This is literally me. And that's how I felt about a few of my NFTs, where I was like, okay, like this represents me enough to where like the monetary value doesn't mean anything, because I don't want to have to buy another mutant and try to like settle for a trait that kind of doesn't represent me but kind of does.
You know? I think we see it in our community like pretty widely, right? Like we see how a lot of our sales are way above floor price on a daily basis. I would say we're one of the collections that has the most sales above floor on any given day.
It's so good.
And that's because people actually seek out the art that speaks to them when they're looking for a degen tune, right? Of course, you have the traders who want to make money, and that's totally cool. But a lot of our holders are people who actually found art that spoke to them.
Such a good trend.
Yeah, it's the way to build a brand, in my opinion.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, y'all are doing it right for sure. It's got to feel good to have that feedback from people. You know what I mean? Just like see people like personally connecting to stuff, and you're like, okay, validation, right? Like we're doing the right thing. Let's continue moving forward.
I think there's like different waves with it too. Like, you know, we obviously like from the mint out, you know, we had quite a high holder count at that time that like over like those first, I would say 5 to 6 months, like slowly dropped off, right? Yeah. Like there was like a lot of people that were just treating it as like these, just an opportunity to flip and make a little bit of money, right? But since then, like we've been seeing like in the last 2 months, our holder count very slowly gaining traction and going up again. But that's because like it's not people coming in and buying like 20 or 30 of them. No. It's someone coming in and buying one or two, like the one or two that speak to them.
Well, it's like what we said before, that the times of becoming rich of it is over right now. So you're only participating if it truly means something to you.
100%.
And I think that's for the companies and for the for the projects that have stuck around, I mean, it means everything. To have this, to have that slow trickle growth, those people mean so much more face value than the flippers.
Yeah.
And they're going to hold such a value for you all going forward. That's actually building that platform like you're talking about, is like building that really strong base level. Now is our time to do it.
Yeah, this is a perfect market.
It is. Like, let's get as many people on our projects as we can right now, because they truly fucking care.
Yeah.
They're not in it because there's money at the end of next week. Like, there's not.
Yeah.
And so,
And that's where we've had the biggest lesson, because when you go back to the whole topic of dropping information on a weekly basis, updates, building in public, right? You have to do it in a way where you're speaking to the right audience, because you don't want it to sound off as like, here's a quick insight into how you're going to make the next flip, right? Like, oh, we're dropping this, now you can gear up to make money. It's more so like, this is the vision, you either align with it or you don't. And either way, it's totally fine with us. We're going to continue to build this way, but finding that balance and finding how to speak to your community in a way where is relevant is very difficult. And I think it's something that we all still struggle with.
I'm just happy with the market now, right? Like,
I agree.
A lot of people don't they don't see it that way, but for me, it's like, this is a time where we can really sit down and focus and put together a podcast and build these things in the background for the brand that we're trying to achieve and, really be proud of. And you're not really able to do that in, a crazy bull market.
No, I share the same sentiment with you. About the market right now.
It's tough. Like, when everything is going so quick, you're just playing catch up with the next guy. You're just trying to make sure that you're delivering the bare minimum to stay alive in that market, when in this market you're like, okay, what can we really build? What can we do that's different, that's unique, that will position us as this like lifestyle household brand, whether it's doing animated series or building a really cool clothing line or developing a podcast, whatever it is. The goal is to do that now rather than playing catch up with
it's the smartest thinking I think anyone can make, honestly. And even like, just speaking to not being offended by the market and where it sits today, like, I think I'm lucky to come from a sneaker world, because like, we've been through a volatile market and like a roller coaster market for the last 10 years. And so even speaking to vintage clothing, contemporary designer, sneakers, footwear, things like that, the market has went exactly the same as we're seeing Web3 and NFTs go right now, where it's like, it always starts up here or starts right here. Then it goes up to here and you're like, wow, we're making more than we'll ever make. And this is going to keep going up. Then all of a sudden the shit drops. I remember it happening with sneakers when I was making like more than I ever thought I would make in my life off 1985 Jordan 1s. Never could have fathomed making a penny more than we were selling these things for.
What was the highest that you've sold?
At that time, and this is like, I gotta have this documented in the world, but I had over 50 pairs of 1985 Jordan 1s curated in our Round 2 store, which now is worth like $1 million, but then was worth like tens of thousands.
Wow.
But like, at that time, we were selling the shoes for max $1,000 a pair. But it was crazy. I was finding them at flea markets for $250 consistently every weekend. And then to be able to get $1,000 for a pair, I was like, this market is fucking booming. Then it just dropped off. Couldn't barely give 85 ones away for a while. It was the kind of thing where it felt like everyone had got them. And I was like, well, that's weird. And then the market started to, go down and go down. And then it hit this kind of like rock bottom where we're like, well, we'll never be able to resell 85 Jordan 1s again. Like, here's the price that they go for, and this is the new world. And then all of a sudden, a new generation comes in with new technology, StockX, of these selling platforms, and now people are seeing in their fingertips someone else asking $5,000.
So what's the retail right now
for 85 Jordan 1s? I'll be damned if you ever find a pair for less than $1,000 in any condition. Upwards of 10,000 with the box.
And you're probably not running across them at flea markets anymore and stuff like that.
Never,
ever
now. And I'm telling you, it was a weekend thing at the time. But again, like, it's the same thing we're seeing this market go through, where we were all, Bitcoin's high, ETH is high, NFTs are high. We're like, this is insane. Then it all drops off. We're like, holy shit, it's a desert, like, what's happening? But I have confidence, just based on how markets function, that like, there's going to be a huge up after this. If you ask me, it's guaranteed. Because it always happens with sneakers, always happens with all that, where like, once something's going for the bare minimum, it gets snatched up, it gets scooped up, and it becomes rare. and then that rarity doesn't come into effect until the new generation's in. We're in a pivotal place right now where we're moving into a new generation that's going to have access to Web3 and NFTs. They're going to see a completely different value in products being traded right now than we're seeing in current time. And it's going to result in a huge market explosion. Like that's my personal view on it, but I think we're headed there.
It's definitely like that. I mean, like I've been in crypto. I got introduced to crypto back in high school.
Sick.
You know, like 2010. I remember my computer science teacher.
Wow.
Like, yo, check
Genius.
this out. Like, put like $50. Back then, $50 was crazy. Like, we didn't have $50.
Insane.
We're trying to figure out how we're gonna pay bills and eat and all that stuff. So I was like, you know, we'll figure it out, right? And then I was like, all right, I got my own money. Like a few years later, like 2014, 2015, I started getting into crypto and investing and all this kind of stuff. But I was never the guy that's like, I'm going to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum and just day trade and flip and sell and all that kind of stuff. I just buy and I hold. But I've seen the markets, right? I've seen like this like cycle
2017, man.
every single 4 years, right? Like, and you'll have this crazy run up 2017. It will start 2016, 2017 you'll have crazy highs. 2018 it's like crypto market's dead, everyone's going to zero, nobody talk to me, like never bring up crypto again. 2020 Ethereum's at like 100 something bucks, Bitcoin's at like 2K, whatever it is, and people are like, yeah, crypto's dead. And then March, April-ish, like
we're in it for NFTs for a bit in that. I do remember 2017 sitting in my house watching YouTube videos of like these 16-year-old kids with like Lambos in their garage, just being like throwing out tokens, and then just being like and you knew they were pumping them because then everything would go up, and I remember saying like, this is so stupid, and yet I didn't sell, you know what I mean? So I do think that I've heard this before, and actually Gordon from the Bored Ape Yacht Club, so he's like, I think that every people's success is linked to how much they lost in the previous cycle. Because you know it's hard to sell, man. And people would say it to me all the time, like, take some gains. I'm like, nah, man, this is going. I'm going for the yacht. And then you realize like, nah, I should have taken some gains, man.
I wish I had taken a few too.
That's the thing, right? Like, you know, for me, I really focus pretty big on, you know, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Right, specifically those two, just because that's like what I've really been exposed to, especially now in our business. Ethereum is a very big, you know, point in the business, but those are like the two that I'm like, all right, I feel the decentralization around these. I'm not too worried about.
No, you're long term.
It's all about the long term kind of aspect of it. I mean, in 2-3 years, 2024 we'll see the run up start again. 2025 we'll hit those all-time highs once again.
My dad told me
like
5 years ago to buy a bunch of Bitcoin, put it in a wallet, and never look at it for the next 10 years. He was like, just don't look at it ever again. And I wish I had just taken his advice, you know.
I mean, that's the thing. Every 4 years you get that same cycle, and it's like you said, it's almost guaranteed. Obviously we don't know if, you know, what's going to happen in 4 years,
but it's almost guaranteed.
But it's almost like, it's as close to guaranteed as you can get. And if you can see this cycle and like identify the pattern, then you'll make smart decisions. You just wait for the bottom, which is generally close to where the run up starts up again, and then you just ride to the top, and you know you got a year and a half, everything's going to be great. The other year and a half, people are like, crypto's going to hell, nothing's working out, we're going to zero. And that's when you know, like, it's just a cycle starting all over again.
It's almost exciting too when you start following that cycle, because you're like, all right, bring up the next.
It is an emotional roller coaster. I mean, last week or weekend, whenever that was, when you were like, no. You know
FTX.
what I mean?
Like every day is like, shit, what's happening?
I appreciate the FTX entertainment lately, though. I mean it's provided memes. I love seeing the interviews of SBF. Like, do you see the one of him shaking like some shit?
I saw.
And I'm like, how is this not a red flag to any of us?
Nobody saw it.
We were like sitting there shaking like this, answering an interview. I'm like, dude,
it's crazy. But the thing
when
is,
you peel it all back, you're like, there was so many red flags.
But there was so much money being made that people were like, they ignored it.
Like blinded from it.
Just I mean. Like, how does an exchange start in 2019 become the third biggest exchange in the world in a year?
I mean, it's just unbelievable too when you're like, Tom Brady, Larry David. Like you
Shaq.
just look at the caliber
like
of talent.
biggest names.
I love
Curry.
I love the Mr. Wonderful interview too, where he's like, "Oh, FTX, how
like the
safe do I feel
the
here?" He's
safest.
like, "I feel the safest."
And that was
of
like 3
anywhere."
days before it collapsed.
Yeah,
I
he's
mean,
like,
this guy
he's
too.
like, his parents are compliance lawyers. He's like, if I feel safer anywhere in the world, it's with FTX.
And then did you see the interview yesterday?
Yeah, and he's, like, low-key
Or
joking
this-
about it. He's like,
I'd reinvest.
Yeah,
People
he's
are like,
like,
what?
Yeah.
he's crazy, dude.
That guy, man.
But
Anyway,
we see it every
Yeah.
market too, like right, like every cycle there's these like exchanges that blow up, get popular, go crazy, and then all of a sudden no more money, people can't withdraw, it goes to zero, and then people are like, oh, market's going to shit, everything's going to zero.
Yeah.
And then a couple years later, oh, this brand new exchange, or like the Coinbases and the Binances of the world that are like, they've held pretty well throughout like all the ups and downs, like you're kind of able to identify those as part of this pattern. Like, we see these shit coins coming out all the time.
Yep.
I mean, personally, there's no reason Dogecoin should be pumping, but it does. And people love the novelty behind it, and that's why it does. Yeah, you saw Shiba Inu come out, and people are like, well, it's somehow a dog. Elon Musk loves it. It's going to go to the moon, and it did, right? But it's just, you see it. Once the markets start pumping, crazy shit comes out. People make millions and millions and millions of dollars. Like, I know personally somebody that made $2 million off of, like, I think it was 10K investment.
Love that.
Like 10 grand, and they walk out with $2 million because they invested in a
this
random,
is the dream
like,
that got a lot of us into it.
I hope
they paid
It
their
was like
taxes.
hearing these sexy ass stories
Yeah.
of like someone who bought something for a few $1,000 and sold it for 6 figures.
crazy thing is, it was actually happening way more than it ever has happened in history, where this like transfer of like wealth is right in front of us, where you see these 15-16-year-old kids that invest $100 and walk out with 100 grand.
The holidays
After,
last
like,
year.
I mean, it
Yeah.
increased the
Crazy.
wealth gap like crazy, honestly. It really did. It created this whole like new insane tier where, I mean, how much do we hear billions being talked about now?
Yeah,
I've never
that's
in
crazy.
my life heard the word billion exchanged so much ever. I mean, we have long ass lists of billionaires now. We
As
are
if
constantly
it's like a normal thing.
I mean, as normal people, we're like referring to billions of dollars.
I mean,
all the
Yuga
time in
Labs had
conversation.
the largest seed fund ever, right? With
Yeah.
a $4.5 billion
Valuation, $4 billion
valuation.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no seed round in the history has ever been that large.
This
And
is
that's,
insane.
and that's like within a year and a year and a bit.
In a
right?
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, less than a year. Yeah.
insane
Yeah.
that's possible.
Yeah.
You know?
Crazy.
I mean, it's
Web3.
absurd.
Speaking of currencies and coins, have you guys figured out a mint price? And also, are you doing it on Ethereum, or are you looking at other blockchains? Or
Yeah. So we are definitely doing Ethereum for the Mint Pass. As we get into collections, that we may play with some layer 2s, but right now we're definitely Ethereum for our Mint Pass and Sean's collection. Mint price isn't announced yet, so we'll announce the Mint price probably about 2 weeks from the drop. This may come out right around that time, but if it does, we'll add a link.
we'll add it, yeah, for sure.
We'll add it below. The Mint price is
Yeah.
we haven't announced Mint price yet.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love that you're looking at layer 2s for potential future. you
Yeah,
know.
I think as you think about collections and things, and you think about ways that can be, again, we would like to see a world where there's, art meets some of the items, and those are, really kind of sought after and limited in terms of trading. But I'd like to see a world where like you're just going on and there's multiple pieces up there and they're not sold out. You buy them because you kind of want to flex them, and the price of entry is pretty low and the gas fee is really low. It's not going to happen tomorrow in our roadmap, but it's definitely, that is part of our objective. Part of our objective is like, I'm rocking the mintage and I got it,
Or it's like, I just got a new avatar. I need to go on mintage to dress them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, I just picked up whatever, if it's a world we're working with or however this interoperability works, it's like, we want you to essentially be able to like go to our platform and continually dress these
Engage,
with your exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we've
I
really
love it.
tiered it out, where it's kind of like the Kiths of the world and things like that, how there's like levels to the brand. Like you can go in Kith and buy a $40 t-shirt, and right next to it is a $495 sheepskin lamb wool fucking BMW collaboration P code. I don't know.
Yeah, I want
know
that.
what I mean?
That
So-
sounds fire.
It's like a fun piece. So, but yeah, I mean, those kind of levels, it's so important. And so that's something that is also going to be huge for us, is like a cornerstone in mintage.
That's really sick. I wanted to ask you about the shoe that you did with Nike.
Yeah.
And like seeing how much hype it got and like how crazy it went. Like, was that something you were expecting?
Not really, actually. Like, it was just a perfect storm. Like, we were fairly new in California. We had tons of celebrities coming in the store, and I was working in round 2 all day, every day. Every person who came in, I always made a point to shake your hand and have an exchange, you know, some kind of dialogue. And so when it came to the shoe, I just like had all these people who I'm like, oh, yeah, I connected with like Balvin. I'm gonna text him and see if like he can post these shoes and tag me in them or whatever.
Yeah.
I had never asked anyone to do something like that for me before, so it felt super fresh.
Yeah.
And I just like hit up everyone I knew, and yeah, it all just kind of worked together. I didn't expect it to be that big. Nike put a lot of like marketing into it, set up a lot of great opportunities, but just perfect storm, really.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now the silhouette you guys picked was crazy. Like,
well,
I
again,
don't
like
think
mixing
people...
the two shoes, it was
Yeah.
something that hadn't really been done much before either. So I think
Yeah.
like that excited people, was like taking these two like heritage classics and then meshing them, and you kind of have like a cult following for a 97, a cult following for Air Max 1. Now they both have to like the same shoe.
Yeah,
It was like double whammy.
that's really cool.
It's like hiring. It's like voting. It's like if we had a president that was Democratic and Republican. You know
It's just
what I'm
like
saying?
It's called balance.
It's a centrist
Just
shoe.
a perfectly balanced situation.
Yeah.
No, I remember I was trying to get those shoes for a minute.
Yeah.
Like whenever they came out, they were so hard to get.
It was pretty tough.
They
And we
were
made
really
a
hard
lot
to
of
get.
them too. I
Yeah.
can say
Yeah.
we did a shit ton of those shoes.
And the floor price stayed high, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
That's
it
good
was
resale
cool.
value now, even
Yeah.
now, right?
Well, it was because like how we were talking, just like how we're talking about creating NFTs that people hold close and near and dear and don't want to sell, and you can't even match a monetary value to. That's what I did with the shoes, where it was like first thing you see when you open the box is these are meant to be worn, and they
Yeah.
get better with wear. Immediately selling you into never getting rid of that product,
Yeah.
which meant a lot to me because I was like, I want someone to wear these for 10 years, look back, and then see all those different moments in the shoes. And I was like, if I can create that memory with people, I think I'll have one of the most popular shoes of life, because instead of being popular this year, it'll have another resurgence in 10 years when everyone's still has them, and then they're sharing these memories and moments they had. And so, yeah, I don't know, that's like, you know, seeing that in real life happen, and then seeing that's also like how you guys are doing it, and how, you know, a position we're taking with NFTs. It's just cool seeing something work,
Yeah.
you know.
It really is. I'm gonna have to get myself a pair.
You gotta try snagging them. I wish I had a pair to give you.
No, I'll
Yeah.
definitely. I gotta find somebody that's willing
Yeah.
to let them go. But
I think they're
that's
like
tough.
1,500, almost 2,000 on StockX.
They are,
Listen,
dude.
bro.
They're expensive.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I was just thinking, like, as you were saying all this, you know, Web3 NFTs. Imagine as a creator, if you would have been able to profit from every single resale of that sneaker from the then to today. What that would be.
I mean, it would have been nuts. That's a royalty. I wish I had a lawyer in place to throw in my contract at the time.
Yeah,
Read my-
It is the
Right.
dream, right?
I mean,
That's
I
what.
signed that contract without even looking at it.
of course.
So
I'm
I mean,
sure.
who knows what could have been possible?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're going into a new world where who knows how it all plays out. But I do
Right.
think that part of the royalty will level itself out, and we'll figure it out, and innovation will do it. But that was for me that was the light bulb moment. It was the royalty. I mean, I literally told that to Guy Osiri, who went on to, you know, establish his relationship with the apes. Like when he heard that and thought about us guys come from music,
Yeah.
and like we kind of have these royalty revenue models, but this is directly from the source. It was game over.
Yeah.
And I really, you know, think that there are conditions where maybe a royalty isn't necessary when somebody's
course.
selling something at a loss, but I really do think protecting the royalty for creators in a meaningful way is the most important thing we can do, because it's what got so many of us into this in the first place.
Yeah, no, we totally agree. I think the community as a whole, I think is pretty much on the same page, right? There's
Yeah.
very few people that are opposed to royalties, and maybe they have different agendas in mind.
The question
right?
is how you enforce it, and
Right, it's all about
you
that.
know, that kind of stuff. And so, but yeah,
Cool.
That's awesome.
Well, we've taken enough of your time today, and we really appreciate you being here and
so
talking.
this is
about
rad, man.
Mintage.
I'm a super big fan. I want to keep seeing what's going on with the community, and we're gonna learn from you guys. So, events, things like that, best practices. You know, like we've been in it, but you know we're dropping something, so we don't want to fuck it up.
Yeah, we're always here, man. You know, reach out. Any questions you guys have,
Let's go.
and we'll probably be doing the same. You know, we can learn from each other for sure.
Let's
course.
go. Let's
course.
stay. We'll get you guys on the spaces too.
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah,
tight.
Yeah, we love to.
No,
Yeah.
likewise. You guys should
Yeah.
be guests on ours.
Let's
you know?
do it. Let's go.
I gotta say, it's pretty crazy. Like a year or so ago,
Yeah.
we were the only two people in this entire building talking NFTs and Web3.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, I just like caught a conversation Joel was having one day, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Are you talking NFTs?" Because I had just learned about it, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Ooh, I can't wait to like share some knowledge with someone else."
Yeah, yeah. I
And we were
remember.
just like the two NFT dudes in here, always like sharing shit. I'd be like, "Look what I just got! Look what I just got! Look what I just sold this for! Look what I got!" And so it's cool. And now like.
Yeah.
Now we're up here again, like
Full
we're
circle.
the only two
Yeah,
dudes
full
that still
circle.
from here
Yeah.
give a shit.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's a cliche, but I will say it. I made more friends in the last year than I made in the last 15
I
years.
cannot agree more.
It's
Yeah.
brought Web3
can't
has
agree
brought,
more.
and it's cool people, man.
I never
Like,
expected it to bring
yeah.
me together with people. I was
Yeah.
like, this is like a digital world. Like we're not
Yeah.
gonna become real friends.
You know what's crazy? Like I experienced that like firsthand, seeing people that I was inspired by growing up whenever I was
Yeah.
in the fashion industry, and seeing like these people jump into Web3, and we start having these conversations and working on things together and all that stuff, and then like opening up my phone, going to Instagram, and like checking a DM. I remember I had one from like Bobby Hundreds.
Yeah, Bobby
So
Hundreds,
sick.
Mike
From
Shinoda.
like 2012 when
Yeah,
I
yeah.
DM'd him, and he like DM'd me the other day, or like when he saw it, he's like, holy shit, like
That's crazy.
10-year-old message.
I love that.
You know,
Wow.
I think I
Yeah.
got one to you somewhere around there.
That's
Some Instagram DM.
You should check the DMs.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's funny. It's random story, but I was just telling a friend yesterday. I was like, yo, I love when someone slides in the DM to like talk shit to me, and then I
Yeah.
like go to the DM and I swipe up, and like in 2016 they were like,
Yo, I love your shit.
yes,
like,
dude. And I'm like,
Yeah.
bro, what changed it for you?
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's so funny.
That's
man.
good.
No, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Man, love
It's
it.
tight.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
No,
no,
Yeah,
thank you
thanks so
guys.
much, guys. We appreciate the time for sure.
Great conversation.
hell yeah,
No.
Cool.
Just a lot of creative,